Hello all, I'm here with a new video for you today. And today I want to ask, have you remembered to thank a Gale? Because you need to thank a Gale for this OS that we're trying today, Zorin OS. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. You can see here that it's got a very clean theming, which I like. A little modern, but you know. So we're going to go ahead and get down to it and install Zorin OS. So, a little bit about Zorin is that this is a distro made by an Irish company. There's more of those than you would think. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna standard keyboard layout stuff here. You know, this is pretty typical Ubuntu install. We're gonna go ahead and download the updates. Yes. Generally, it's very helpful to install the updates while you're installing the OS. It just makes your life easier. But thankfully, this is one way in which Linux is much better than Windows. You don't usually need to download the updates in batches, and if you do, it's never more than... So yeah, as I said, this is an Irish distro. Like I said, there's a surprising number of Irish distros out there, because if I remember correctly, I could be completely off based on this, but if I remember right, the creator of Mint is also Irish, so kind of interesting. So we're going to go ahead and erase and install Zorin OS. Yes, it shouldn't be that surprising though, considering Google and a couple of other major tech firms actually have a pretty big presence in Dublin apparently. And now for my name, we're just gonna call this test box, and this part's gonna be blanked out too. Now, one thing that is kind of interesting about this OS is that if you notice there was a tick box to use a Active Directory, which is interesting. I don't really have a way to test that out, but apparently that is actually a big thing with this distro. See, Zorin OS is kind of more made to be geared towards businesses, and because of that, obviously you need some kind of Active Directory integration, which if it actually works, which like I said, I don't really have a way to test it out right now, that would be super cool. Another odd thing about this distro that kind of put me off at first, but when I thought about it, let me explain. If you go on to the Zorin OS website, okay, you're going to see two versions. You're going to see Pro and you're going to see Core. The version we are testing out today is the Core version. But if you want to get the Pro version, it is $80. Now, I know that for some people that's going to put a pretty bad taste in their mouth, especially in the open source world, but for me, it doesn't bother me as much because there's nothing wrong with making money off of your work. That's not the issue, and that's not the point of open source software. The point of open source software is that the software is free. It's free for the user to actually own and modify. Not necessarily that it's free in the monetary sense. The common expression you hear is free as in speech, not free as in beer. Very quick install so far. I like that. Zorin OS, so far, my impression of the aesthetics of it are kind of interesting, because it almost seems like it's definitely leaning into the more modern, like very much vector graphics style of aesthetics, which is normally I absolutely hate, but I have to admit, this is actually this is a pretty tasteful implementation of it. We're almost done copying the files. Very quick install, which is very nice. I actually wasn't expecting it to be this quick. So you can see it's still going here, moving along pretty quickly though. So far so good. Got my trusty coffee here. Coffee is your best friend when installing operating systems. Or sometimes a movie. But a little bit more about Zorin OS. A little bit more about Zorin OS. Zorin OS, it almost seems to be like the business version of Linux Mint, which I think is pretty cool, and I think there's a space for that here in the open source world, because you see, if something that they bring up on their website that is definitely kind of true is that in the open source world, stuff is made by engineers for engineers. Now, that does have a lot of advantages, but truth be told, not everybody in the world is an engineer now, are they? So you need something made for other people. And there's been lots of projects that have come up to try to fill this gap, and Zorin OS is kind of trying to plug this gap in the professional kind of business environment, which I think is pretty cool. So we're just going to leave it run here for another couple of minutes, and I'll give you some more impressions on it. And here we are now at the final step. We're just running a update-grub, which is basically just telling it to configure the bootloader. And we're looking at about half an hour for the total install to get to this point. Not too bad given that we selected all the options. So I'm going to go ahead and reboot and we'll have it back up in a minute. And here we are back on Zorin OS. Okay, love the Zorin OS startup sound. Absolutely love it. Reminds me of the old days of like Windows XP. Okay, so yeah, let's start the tour and see what it has to offer. After all, this is a first look. Alright. Decent welcome screen so far. Comes with its own appearance app. Pretty good, pretty good. Yes, by the way, to be clear, I am installing this in a virtual machine. This is actually a nice little screen here because I've never seen this before in a Linux distro, offering to install add-ons to speed it up in a virtual machine. So you know what? We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do that. We're gonna go remind me later. We're gonna install. Yes, we're gonna go ahead and do that. Okay. That's installing now. So let's see what the next screen, the welcome screen, shows us. Lets you connect your online accounts, pretty standard. That's a pretty cool feature that I might have to give a try to sometime. I know that there's a similar feature in KDE that I've used called KDE Connect, and that's pretty cool. So I wonder if this is actually similar to that. Ah, yes. And this takes us to actually what is one of the big selling features of Zorin, is that Zorin has a very good software center, apparently. So let's go ahead and launch it and get a look. Looks pretty good. Gives me an Explorer, option to see what's installed. Ooh, comes with a backup manager and Brasario. Interesting. Haven't used Brasario in a long time. Comes with an update manager, which is pretty cool. Let's see if it picks up anything, because I did just get a pop-up for saying there was 17 updates, so okay, nope, might have to mess around with that later. Explore. So let's just take a look around here. A lot of stuff you would typically expect to find in a Ubuntu. Kind of looks like the Ubuntu Software Center too. I haven't used the Ubuntu Software Center in like years because I don't use Ubuntu very often. But so far it looks good. Very much like that kind of modern, kind of minimalist aesthetic. Let's go through trying to install something here. What's a good candidate to install? Alright, let's calculate my coffee. I had coffee a minute ago, so let's see. Okay, that's cool. Comes with a FlatHub integration. Super easy install process. So yeah, it's basically the install process on this distro is just you click a button. Pretty cool. Move my face up into the corner here so you guys can get a better look. See, that's what the menu bar looks like right there. Right there. So pretty typical. See what comes up if I click on it here. Gives you some options here. There's an option for a dark mode. Oh, wow. Let's try the dark mode. Oh, ain't that slick. This is one of the nicer looking distros, actually. I wonder if they got the inspiration for this from the Nordic theme that you see on a lot of Linux desktops. Because that's what it kind of reminds me of. Very, very nice looking. Let's get a look into the menu bar here. Because it's interesting that this is a GNOME 3 implementation, but yet it comes with a very, like, actually kind of traditional start menu, which I much prefer, by the way. System tools, which I like. Okay. Not sure. I'd have to play around with that a bit, because I don't like how it only shows you, how it doesn't show you the sub menus and the main menu at the same time. But I know that's a personal preference thing, so see if I go all apps. Okay. Comes with Brave browser by default, which is interesting. I actually like that personally. I know that's a little bit more controversial out there, but I think Mozilla has just been, for the last, like, I don't know, probably about 5 or 10 years, it's just been a complete flop. And people are hanging on to it, but I think they're hanging on to it way past its prime. Okay, let's see what else we got. Ooh, Rhythm Box, okay. Comes with an option to upgrade Zorin OS, weather. This is actually like, you know, normally I hate GNOME 3, but so far this actually looks pretty good. Let's get a look at what its resource usage is like. So, go utilities, let's see if it's under here. System monitor. Okay, we'll go resources. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit... So, even after a little bit of messing around, we're still running at about a 2.1 gigs of memory. So actually, you know, that's quite reasonable. So yeah, pretty good resource usage on this distro. So far, at least, this is one that I like. Okay, my coffee calculator has a finished downloading, so let's just open up, see how that works. See if the install actually worked well. I don't know much about the app, but this part seems to work. Very nice looking distro. Pretty moderate resource usage, which is nice. Good software center. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. On the whole, I actually like this. Go through the last screen of the welcome screen here. And that's it. We hope you enjoy Zorin OS. Well, I think I have. And I think I'm going to have to try out this distro on some real hardware at some point. And I think that would be interesting. Especially because it's a super simple install. It's Ubuntu based, so it's pretty easy to get. Yeah, I think this is a good candidate for trying out some real hardware. What do you guys think? Should I try this out on some real hardware at some point? After all, I got a laptop sitting here next to me that could use a new operating system. If you think yes, then comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and pray